Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anybody in between, welcome back to the NFL Elite Banner, episode 11. We made it 11 weeks. Check that out. We're only one day late. Uh, as always, we got me, Rich Smoke, and we got Freight Train over here. Unfortunately, a Steelers fan. But yeah, man, how you been doing today, Freight Train?
Wow, shots fired. I was just getting ready to say, have you ever used a microphone before? Because you almost ate it as you came on. It was insanely loud.
Oh,
Are you still
I
trying to
apologize.
figure out the distance that you're supposed to be at to sound good?
Yeah, I haven't figured that out yet. Well, I had the
Yeah.
condenser on for a while, so it muffled it, I think, a little bit, so it didn't seem as loud. And now I'm so used to that sound, I feel like I have to lean in.
Yeah.
So
Right.
basically, I'm good from where I'm at. That's what you're pretty
Right.
much saying.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah. But to
All
our
right.
to our listeners, I apologize for yesterday as I had vehicle troubles. The starter in our van went out, and I still haven't got to put the starter back in because it's the biggest pain in the rear end job I've ever been, you know, involved in. And then it decides to rain all day today. So
Today's been a very wild day. I'm not going to get into my day. We talked about that a little bit before the show started, and we're just going to avoid that topic. But what a day it has been, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a very interesting Friday. Obviously, we're not going to get as many views as usual. I know a lot of you guys have a lot better things to do on a Friday night. I feel like I should, but I do not. The beauty of being a parent and being exhausted from the work week.
I
But
tell you
anyway,
what, though, I
yeah.
am going to challenge our listeners
Okay.
because we need you guys to be more active on our page.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
more involved. Tell us how you feel. Make a post or something. Can we come alive? I feel like it's a bunch of zombies and bots on our page. Get involved when we post something. At least react to it.
Yeah, come on, guys. So, I mean, obviously, we tell you guys all the time, the more stuff you post, the more it allows us to kind of even bring onto the show.
Right.
And I'm sure if you guys have some good takes on things, I'm sure we'll carry that over to the show, and we'll definitely hit on some of that. And obviously, you guys can watch the show recorded later, or whatever it is. It's a Friday night, so. But either way, we are going to hop into some pretty cool stuff. Obviously, a lot of things have happened for the last week, and hopefully, I'm not eating the mic still. Am I good where I'm at?
You sound good now. Yeah, you sound
Okay,
great.
so we got some things to hit on. Obviously, there's been a lot of trades. There's been a lot of random free agency signing for the last week since it started. And even some, the draft is less than a month away now, or about a month away.
Yeah.
And we got some comparisons to draw. I think there's some things that we kind of have to hit on here. There's been a lot of wild speculations with rookies and guys that went to new teams, and we got people flipping over dirt bikes and all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
But my first thing of the day, I'm going to call this the jest topic. This is going to start us off quickly. I'm not sure if you guys saw the news, but Cam Sutton has been released from the Detroit Lions, cornerback, former Steeler. In case you didn't know, he is on the run. So I'm calling this cut and cuffed. Well, he's not cuffed just yet.
No.
He won't be locking into any long-term contracts except for the one that the prison sentence comes with.
Yeah.
He will be getting signed by the Department of Corrections of whatever state he is deemed necessary to report to. But he threw his significant other, girlfriend, whatever they are, out of a third-story ledge or something like that. And he is currently running from the police, and it's been 2 or 3 weeks since they've been able to find him. His agent claims that he must have his phone off. I don't know a single person that's gone 2 weeks without their phone. Apparently, that's what the agent report was, is that he might have his phone off, and that might be why he's not responding.
Oh, yeah. Never mind the fact that he knows that he screwed up and threw somebody out.
I threw somebody off a third-story ledge. Now I'm not going to answer the phone, but I swear my phone was off. I didn't think the cops were going to come looking for me for that.
Yeah.
That minor offense. But aside from that, I thought that was pretty funny to start off with. I mean, it is a pretty wild story. I didn't know anything about it until I saw that he was cut. And you got to love comment sections of everything these days. The comment section is always better than the content itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so, I mean, we'll hop right into our first serious topic here. And obviously, the one major thing to note, we won't spend too much time. I know we make this a very Steelers-oriented show a lot of the time. A lot of our viewers are AFC North guys. But the first major thing to hit on is the Steelers quarterback shakeup. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of expectations. There's all kinds of crazy things circulating this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the first one I want to talk about, because everybody's talking about Justin Fields, everybody's talking about Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett. I got to say, poor Mason Rudolph. I mean, we all knew he wasn't a star, but he's been there for 6 years. He gave a lot of time to the franchise. And it's funny, he came out with a report where apparently he was on standby. He got notified by the Titans they wanted to sign him sooner, but he waited. He thought that the Steelers were definitely going to give me a call, right? I mean, I took him 4-0 to finish the year. Steelers have to call me. They never contacted him about a contract whatsoever, not even an offer.
I think they just wanted to move on from that debacle of a quarterback room from last year. Like,
It's completely different.
I appreciate Mason's, little 4-game stretch there. But we all know who you are and what you are on the football field. Like, your play is super inconsistent. The Steelers, now with Mason, they didn't even throw for like 20 touchdown passes all season. Like, that's atrocious.
But, so
you know what I mean? Like,
but we have a lot of quarterbacks to talk about, and that's the reason why I'm. So my next thing though is the Kenny Pickett saga. Right now, we went live last week and we talked about how Kenny Pickett might not be in the best mindset after all the changes that were made, which turned out we were very, very correct about. By the way, we had a very strong feeling that there was some turmoil behind the scenes, and then he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, which we all know by now. It's been about a week. If you haven't known, then let me know where your rock is, because I would love to hide under a rock.
You're living with Patrick down in Bikini Bottom.
I would love that. There's so many things I would love to avoid. I need that same rock. But it's funny because when we were on the show, there was a lot of people that were saying that, whether in the comments or even on the Steelers realm and things like that, you've seen this. A lot of people came to bat for Kenny. Loved him. Has to come back. Has to have a chance. He gets traded. All of a sudden, they're making little hands jokes, which you guys have been defending him about for the last 2 years. They're making a lot of jokes about how he wasn't very good. I'm saying most.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say most is a fair assessment. I would say at least 80% of the Steelers fans that I've talked to have strongly defended Kenny, have not allowed any negative criticism.
Right.
And watching the Triple B, watching the Steelers realm, and even like remembering what we went through last week, a lot of people defended Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett gets traded. All of a sudden, nobody loves Kenny Pickett. They never did. Never liked him. Never believed in him. Never cared for him. The same people that defended him 24 hours before. How did you feel about how do you feel about that though? Like, overall, the trade itself, and how do you feel about how the fans are just like so back and forth?
I mean, I hate that because those Steelers fans give true realist Steelers fans a bad rap. Like, I know I can defend Bubba. He literally punched his closet door when they drafted the kid. Okay. I've always said I don't trust quarterbacks coming out of the ACC. Never have, never will. Okay. And just the way, like, I will agree that Kenny didn't get his fair shake because of who he had as an offensive coordinator and what he was surrounded by. But you can tell, like, he was damaged goods in our system, right? Like, he developed bad habits in Pittsburgh that I hope maybe he can correct in Philadelphia. His play was a little bit too inconsistent, and he got too caught up in playing hero ball instead of being a quarterback for 4 quarters.
But I think the pressure was put on him to have to play hero ball. I think that was a big part of it. Was like, I mean, remember, you have to look at it differently than Mason Rudolph, right? Mason Rudolph went 4-0 because they know what they have with Mason Rudolph. Same thing with Philadelphia. I said the same thing about Nick Foles when we went to the Super Bowl run.
Yeah,
Carson Wentz was forced to do a lot more with the football. They expected big, explosive plays. They expected Nick Foles to make. Now, he made some big throws that year, but
he was a top 5 pick, though.
But who?
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I'm just saying though. I'm saying though, like, what the problem is people are comparing Mason Rudolph's 4-0 stretch with what Kenny Pickett was able to achieve when he was the starting quarterback. And what my problem with that is, when you put a guy like Mason Rudolph at quarterback, you're going to have a different expectation with him than you will with Kenny Pickett, right? So the game plan, you could tell with Mason Rudolph, was a lot more run friendly, which it should have been all year. That was always your strong suit, always has been, running the ball. Which I felt like with Kenny Pickett, there was a lot of weird plays that felt forced. Like they were trying to make him make a big play. But what's weird about it was
Mason wasn't missing the big plays, so that's the difference.
But I don't think many were written up for Kenny either in a weird way. They had him doing some. Well, yeah, but so did Mason.
He missed a lot of throws.
Mason missed a lot too. But he just had way less.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Mason was all that in a bag of potato chips.
What concerns me, and me and John Collier, shout out to John Collier and his show over there, we talked about some Russell Wilson stuff. My thoughts on Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson had a great career. Obviously, he had one of the greatest defenses of all time on the other side of the ball for his best years, which makes sense. Usually quarterbacks play better when they have the ball more, and you have the ball more when your defense forces fumbles and takes interceptions every 10 seconds. That's what it felt like. I mean, that Legion of Boom was an absolutely terrible. I say one of the best because there's no way they're better than the 01 Ravens, and they're not better than the 85 Bears. But modern day, they are one of the top 3 defenses I've seen in the last decade. So he benefited a lot from that. Not to mention, you got to remember, Russell Wilson had guys like Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Marshawn Lynch, great O-line play, phenomenal defense. I mean, there wasn't really a weak spot in that defense at the time. A young Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, you can name a bunch of corners that played there at the time that played, like Byron Maxwell played out of his mind in that defense, Richard Sherman. I can name 1,000 guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem that I have is, and it's not just Denver, it's even like a couple of his last years when he played in Seattle, his numbers have gone down. What you expect as an older quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
My concern overall, and me and John talked about this, was you got Justin Fields, which was obviously big newsworthy, right? Justin Fields coming from Chicago. Now he's been criticized heavily with Chicago fans and everybody else in the NFL. And
of course,
it's
just like the Kenny Pickett situation here in Pittsburgh. Once they're gone, then you can
same thing. But they were criticizing Justin Fields last year too, though. Like even Bears fans were requesting to trade him sooner. I think they loved him again when he won a game. They hated him. It's just typical fair weather fan type stuff. But what blows my mind and what really confuses me is, and I'm sure this is going to be an issue. And again, Pittsburgh seems like they're just trying to figure out the quarterback situation, however necessary. What concerns me about the quarterback situation right now, so you got Russell Wilson. Right now, and John Collins said the same thing. He's not a fair weather fan. He's pretty honest. He said, I don't see Pittsburgh winning the Super Bowl this year. I don't think it's there. The roster's nowhere near ready for a Super Bowl run. Can we win a playoff game? Hopefully, that's what I'm looking for. But my concern is, and we've discussed this, the odds of re-signing Russell Wilson after the season are extremely slim. Extremely slim. Whether he has a phenomenal year, where they're going to have to pay him a lot of money because he's going to ask for a big contract, especially with Kirk Cousins. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to be 36. He won't ask for a big contract. Did you see what Kirk Cousins just got, out of curiosity? If he takes the Steelers, who didn't win a playoff game in years, and he takes them to the playoffs, and let's say he makes a divisional round or an AFC championship game, or even we'll just go dramatic and say he makes a Super Bowl and you guys lose, whatever it is, do you know what the price tag on Russell Wilson is going to be after this season? And Pittsburgh's not going to pay it. But here's my concern. The other concern I have is they're definitely not going to play Justin Fields. If you look at that trade, there's no benefit to them starting Justin Fields at all, unless they have to. Because that 6th-round pick goes to a 4th-round pick if he plays 50% of the snaps. Right? So odds are, like most teams, they're not going to play him.
If he comes out on fire in training camp in preseason, at that point, a pick doesn't matter. You need a quarterback, Rich. Either way, you got to put the best guy that's going to give you the best position to win on the field.
Right now, Russell Wilson's a starter for sure. I mean,
everybody thinks so.
I think he will be. I think here's the problem I have though, because if you don't start him, it really makes no sense to have him because you're going to kill the rest of his career. But this is a prove it year for him. That's why he took the contract. He has to prove himself. But here's my other angle on this though. So okay, fine. Like you move on, you take Justin Fields long term, 5th-year option, $25 million. Even if you accept it, and let's say Russell Wilson walks, let's say Justin Fields does not play 50% of the snaps, so you keep that better round pick. I'm just saying scenario, right? Big scenario. Russell Wilson walks because he asked for too much money, which would probably happen, and you guys would most likely want to stick with, Fields over Wilson anyway at that point. Wilson would be 36. Justin Fields would be, 25 or 26 next year? I would assume.
26.
And if you're going to accept the 5th-year option of $25 million from Fields, no way you're going to pay Russell Wilson as well and have both of them on your cap.
No.
So no matter what, I see Pittsburgh rolling out with Justin Fields next season. That's just how I see it. My concern, though, is if you do bench Justin Fields all season, and I don't want to spend too much time on this. I mean, we're already 15 minutes in, but I definitely
you got to give me time for my
I will. I'm just saying, but if you get Justin Fields and he sits all year, let's just say he sits all year for the draft pick, Russell Wilson plays well, he walks away at the end of the year, you bring in Fields. Even if you want a playoff game, was it worth it? Because now you had a guy sitting on the bench all year. Him and Russell play a very, very different kind of offense. He might be able to learn basic things, but it's going to be hard. Very different offense. Are you not concerned that winning one playoff game could cost you longevity? I mean, because now you got to re-sign him or give him $25 million for something you have no idea what you're going to get. What are your thoughts on the whole conundrum?
To me, I feel like this is an open competition. Okay, you're not going to get somebody like that because I'm not solely convinced that Pittsburgh realistically thought they were going to get Justin Fields. Yeah. I think they were going to try, but they weren't convinced that they were going to get it. And then when Kenny comes in, requests a trade, well, we have no other choice. We don't want that in our building. We're going to trade him off. And then you're down to one quarterback. Now you're calling the Chicago Bears because you have extra picks that you can kind of salvage to entice the deal. You know what I mean? Here's the thing with Russell Wilson. Okay. There could be possibly a method to the madness. Russell Wilson's only getting paid $1.2 million by the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a very tradable contract for a team that could possibly miss on the quarterback that they're looking for in the draft. They've missed out in free agency. They need a starting quarterback. There's multiple teams out there. Minnesota's one of them. If they don't get the quarterback that they're looking at, they could possibly take a chance on it. You got to get somebody in there for Justin Jefferson, or he's going to want the heck out of there. Okay. Now you got a tradable contract. The Steelers can draft a quarterback here, and it's kind of setting up in the Steelers' favor. Ryan Tannehill is still sitting out there. Who's to say you can't trade Russell, draft a young quarterback, and bring in Ryan Tannehill to back up Justin Fields, who you weren't sure you were going to get in the first place?
That's a lot of quarterback moves in a very short period of time. That means you're getting another move with Wilson. You're bringing in Tannehill. You're drafting a quarterback. I think the problem is going to be is you're going to do so much shaking up the quarterback spot at a certain point. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? We're playing chess in the most complex way possible. Like, when do we stop playing chess and go back?
I can't realistically sit here and fathom that it's not an open quarterback competition.
Well, and there's been a lot of crazy moves. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh's had a ton of crazy ones that nobody saw coming. Nobody saw Pickett getting traded. I definitely didn't see him coming to Philadelphia. I've never been a Pickett fan, so I'm not defending the guy. Although I do think his reasoning for wanting to leave is understandable. Nobody in his position would be comfortable in that scenario. Let's just be honest. Nobody is. In the
profession that he is in, you cannot run away from competition.
It's not about – I don't think it's running from the competition. I think what happened is – and he made it pretty clear, and everybody that's a Steelers fan has said this on every podcast that I've watched, and Rich Eisen has said it, and Colin Cowherd has said it, and the guy Nick, who I can't stand on ESPN, has said it, Shannon Sharp said it, Skip Bayless has said it. Everybody who never usually agreed on this one thing. The moment they signed Russell Wilson, there was a 1% chance, if not less, that Kenny Pickett was going to start this year. That's just the reality of it. Like you said, Justin Fields maybe because of that next year option. They have to be open to it because, okay, we're going to lose Russell Wilson most likely regardless. Right. And we got to pick up his fifth-year option or re-sign him. We have to figure out what we're going to do because
we have to know what we have.
Because we don't want to keep Russell Wilson. We don't want to keep Justin Fields and pay him $25 million just for him to not be any good and us waste an entire 2 years on these two projects.
Right.
But overall, I can't blame Kenny because at the end of the day, I sell. I've been a sales manager plenty of times, right? I can only imagine what it would be like if I become a manager. I'm working my butt off. I earn my spot. My boss goes, you know what? There's this really accomplished guy who's been a sales manager for 10 years at this other agency. He's not going to be here long, maybe 1 year, but he wants to get transferred later on. But I'm going to bring him in for a year, let him take over the whole office, set up some processes, and then maybe next year you'll get back into the role again. At that point, I'm looking for a new job. In any other job scenario, that's what you're doing. Let's just be realistic. But again, obviously, we'll talk about this a little bit more as time goes on to definitely see what turns out. So I can't wait to see exactly how it goes. I'm sure you're probably pretty curious to see what happens next.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a big change in Pittsburgh. We've never seen them make this many quarterback moves in a very long time.
No.
But with that being said, crazy moves. What are the other, in your mind, what are the other craziest moves that you've seen, whether it be a trade, free agency? What have been the craziest moves? Give me a top three if you have one. If not, just give me one. But what are your craziest moves of this entire free agency period?
I don't know. I honestly thought Josh Jacobs was going to go back to Las Vegas. I didn't think that they could afford to lose him, especially with the inconsistencies at their quarterback position. That was kind of mind-boggling to me. And Saquon going to Philly, that was a pretty big shakeup, Other than that, there hasn't been anything really crazy. Kirk Cousins' contract was pretty crazy. But nothing really touches with the Kenny and Justin Fields saga.
I have two. That's all I got is two. Number one, and I talked to you about this a little bit. I meant to make this a topic on the show, and I forgot. How about Chase Young getting $13 million for 1 year, right? And hear me out. The craziest thing about this whole thing, it was just released that he's about to have a neck operation. And he is expected to miss all of OTAs, training camp, and the preseason. He is hopeful to be available week 1 of the regular season. That's insane. And apparently this was well known. Apparently there was about 8 teams that liked him, including the Niners. They were all interested. They were all in the Chase Young sweepstakes. And once it was announced, hey, there's a neck injury, 7 teams bailed out. Only the Saints and Panthers, I think it was the last 2 teams. They were the last 2 teams that were open to discussion. And apparently it was the $13 million that made the Saints the best option. Apparently the Panthers were not going to offer $13 million for the injury.
Is this money fully guaranteed, or is it packed full of incentives?
It wasn't announced. I didn't see what the terms were. I don't think it's been announced. Hey,
Surely you're
Shane,
not,
how's it going, man?
because surely you're not giving that guy fully guaranteed contract, and he's
It
going
wouldn't
into
surprise
next
me in the
surgery.
NFL anymore. I mean, after what I saw with Deshaun Watson, I'll believe anything. And then the
Because
other
that's just throwing money away.
and then the other crazy move, and I liked him a lot in college. I think he does have a lot of upside still. I think Denver was kind of a bummer for him, and it was for a lot of guys. Like even Russell Wilson saw the worst years of his career. But how about the money that Jerry Jeudy just got from the Cleveland Browns? $58 million. I think it was like 46.
Hasn't even played it down.
I think it was like 46 guaranteed or something like that for a couple seasons. He was obviously traded there. Nobody saw that coming to go to Cleveland. Although I think he'll do well in Cleveland. I think he really will. I think he needed an offense where he could actually kind of spread a little bit. I think Denver did not utilize him properly, just in my opinion. Same thing with Sutton and all them guys. They just didn't use anybody right in that system. And that goes all the way back to probably since Demaryius Thomas left. The rest of that offense has been like an absolute train wreck.
I really don't think I think the knock on Judy is he's not a good route runner.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the problem. When you're a small body guy, you have to be a good route runner.
And his hands are inconsistent.
Well, you got to remember in that draft, everybody thought that Jerry Jeudy was that he was dramatically the best wide receiver coming out of Bama, and it was him, Henry Ruggs, Devontae. I think I'm forgetting somebody, but he was considered to be the best of the 3 or 4. Devontae was ranked 3rd, by the way. He was ranked 3rd out of the 3 guys. They had Jerry Jeudy number 1, and they had Henry Ruggs number 2, and they actually had Devontae. Even though he was the Heisman, they said his translation to the NFL would be number 3 out of the 3.
Well, CeeDee Lamb was in that draft too, wasn't
he? That's correct. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb as well. That's the other one.
So I would say he would be the best out of the bunch.
Well, I don't know. Well, Devontae and him, I'll say Lamb is definitely the best, but I think it's obvious that Devontae is definitely number 2. He's actually ranked the top 14 wide receiver in the National Football League right now. And it's funny because nobody gave him any love. Oh, he's too small. That's why they call him the Slim Reaper. It was supposed to be a knock on him, and now he loves it. He absolutely loves it. Because now he has like one of the best nicknames. I love that nickname, Slim Reaper. Like he has all kinds of things. He has Little Smitty. He has all these nicknames. But the man's killing it. 1,000 yards a season. Always consistent. Was our biggest playmaker in Tampa. One of the only guys that showed up in the playoff game. He was one of the only guys by far to show up. But that contract with Jerry Jeudy was absolutely mind-blowing. And I've talked about Kirk Cousins at $45 million so much I can't even stomach talking about it again just because that's an absolute insane amount of money.
That's going for it.
He's up there making more than Jalen Hurts now. He's up there like Patrick Mahomes level money, and there's no way you could. I mean, listen, great couple of years, but
I mean, I do like Kirk Cousins. I think he's an underrated quarterback, but he can't play well in big games, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. He doesn't win a lot of primetime games. His record for a while there was like 0-15 in Monday night and Sunday night football games. But my concern is $45 million, right? That's a lot of money. But for a 36-year-old quarterback who will be 37, I think, at the end of the year, coming off of a torn Achilles, also had a shoulder injury like 2 or 3 years ago as well. And on top of that, I mean, his production was good. That's why they signed him. But like between the injury, between the age, and the contract, it's very hard to fathom $45 million here. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. But and now with that being said, and this is just in general here. So we have. And do you have any takes on that? I know you were talking about Kirk Cousins there as well. Is there anything else that you want to say about Kirk? Because I know there's a lot of things you could say.
No, I think we've hammered that nail quite a bit, ever since he signed.
Oh, and the last thing I want to say, 1 playoff win, by the way, in his entire NFL career. 1 playoff win. You're paying $45 million a year for a guy who has 1 more win than Desmond Ridder does in the playoffs.
I mean, he has no excuse but to win, obviously. He plays in the worst division in football, and there's all kinds of weapons on that Atlanta offense. Yeah. Like, there's no excuses for Kirk. He better win at least one. Why. Yeah, the pressure is on. And
Tampa's going to be a good team this year. Tampa's definitely going to be up there in the running. But I think Atlanta, with what they have and how much money they've spent, this has to be a win the division or nothing type of year. I mean, there's no way you accept anything less than the division title.
But realistically, you play Carolina twice, and you play New Orleans Saints, who signs guys with neck surgeries on their team. Robbie. So that's 2 wins there, too.
It better. I mean, they should beat Carolina twice. They should be able to beat Tampa at least once. There should be at least a split. And the Saints, I mean, I know they've made some moves, but I still think the Saints are
not enough.
I think they should on paper, they should sweep Carolina and the Saints, which is an automatic 4. At that point, you really only need 7, maybe 6, maybe 7 wins to win that division. I don't think Tampa's going to win 11 or 12 games. They might win 9.
I think I bet you Atlanta gets 9-10 wins next year.
They have to. They have to have at least 9 or 10. If they have less than that, there's going to be a lot of questions for that franchise because that's going to be awful. A lot of players should hire Cousins' agent. Yeah, well, whoever that guy is, they should give him a pay raise. If he was my agent, I'd be like, dude, I'll give you whatever you want. Just do not quit. I like, just don't go anywhere else. But better or worse QB. So I just want to hit on this quickly here. So one of the things I want to hit on, and I don't want to kill it, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but obviously there's been a lot of crazy moves, and Justin Fields is the one we're talking about. Russell Wilson, I'm not going to bother with. He's going to be a one-year guy in Pittsburgh. Fields is a guy that we've been talking about for multiple years. People hated him in Chicago. They loved him in Chicago. They hate him in Pittsburgh right now. That some people love him in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of ups and downs. So I'm just going to go through a couple quarterbacks, and I want you to tell me who you'd rather have, this person or Justin Fields. Okay. I just want to see where you rank them at by the time we get to the end. How many quarterbacks you would take over him?
Okay.
All right. So we're going to start off. So let's see. So number one, we'll start off with the guy that you already have: Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Who would you rather see there start?
Fields.
Fields. Okay. So we got.
I think the upside is higher.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So we got Fields. All right. So let me be honest. And then obviously you're a Steelers fan. I trust you.
I'm trying not to be biased.
The one reason why I'm having you answer instead of me is I truthfully want to see what your thoughts are. You've always been a realist. That's why I brought you on the show with me. When I was discussing I wanted to make a show, you were the first person I thought of because I know you're a realist. And you've heard me trash the Eagles more than I love them half the time. I do. You know I do. I'm very harsh critic.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields?
Ooh. That's a tough one.
There's a lot of ups and downs for both. There's a lot of upside for both. It's a pretty fair comparison.
Yeah. Right now, as their careers have taken off, I would go Trevor Lawrence over Justin Fields.
Okay, so we got Fields. Just for the record, guys, Fields over Wilson, Lawrence above Fields.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you what we just talked about. Excluding age, I'm just talking overall talent. So I mean, obviously, age isn't the whole. We're just talking about this year.
Right.
Kirk Cousins, healthy Kirk Cousins, not, again, age not included. Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields?
See, and this one's a tough one. They both have turned the ball over a lot. But Kirk's usually from gunslinging it, throwing it all over the place. I'm going with Justin here just for the simple fact of his escapability and rushing factor.
Okay. I'm only, you're gonna ignore my laughter. This is all about your thoughts. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go on. So Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts.
Didn't take you
because he's been there, done that. I think Jalen Hurts has a bigger arm and is. I think they're pretty comparable on scrambling. Like you can probably agree on that part. But when it comes to arm talent, I think Jalen Hurts is better.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is. I mean, last year I think he was definitely hurt. And apparently, the report did come out he was apparently dealing with some stuff. Not an excuse for how we absolutely crapped the bed for the rest of the year, but everybody knew. Even Bubba was saying on his show there has to be an injury involved. There's no way he was healthy through those couple of games.
Right.
But either way, I mean, I agree. But okay, so we're past that one. Now, this one, so the next one I'm going to come up with here, and by the way, I'm not going to hit on the obvious. I'm not going to ask you about Mahomes. I mean, that's just a waste of my time.
Yeah.
We know who the answer is there.
Right.
I hope I know. All right. Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Fields?
Oh, Justin Fields, 100%.
Okay.
Tua is one of the most overhyped, overrated quarterbacks in the NFL. You want to talk about a guy that throws rainbows? That's Tua. I don't think honestly, he barely throws the ball. Like, it looks like it just floats in the air.
Well, you got to look at the yards after carry last year. Everybody talked about how great he was passing the ball. You have Waddle, who's super fast. You have Tyreek Hill, who's super fast. You had running backs that were wide open on wheel routes because you had to double team both your receivers. I hope you'd have a lot of passing yards. And another problem I have with Tua is he can't play in cold weather.
Yeah, no.
So being Fields, a Steeler would be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Tua would suck after like mid-October.
Right.
I'm just going to ask this one because this one's actually pretty fair because, I mean, he has a lot of turnover issues. But Josh Allen or Justin Fields?
Oh, Josh Allen. Not even close.
Okay.
Not even close.
Some people have argued with me. I've asked them about that.
No, not even close. Josh Allen is a generational quarterback. He just has to cut down on its turnovers.
Now, this one's tough. In my opinion, it's tough. Arm talent goes one direction, obviously. But Dak Prescott or Justin Fields?
Oh, man, that's a tough one, too. As crazy as it sounds.
I go Dak only because of the arm talent. I have to go Dak with arm talent.
I guess.
I mean, again, I think
but
Justin Fields.
But I feel like if you put Justin Fields in that offense, he'll have the same the same numbers
I
as
don't
Dak.
know. I don't know. I mean, CeeDee Lamb and Dak do have a hell of a connection. I think the hard part is a lot, and I will give Dak credit for one thing. He did have one of the best. I'm not sure if you look into the numbers at all. I look into all kinds of crazy stuff. Because before I trash people, I like to have factual stuff. I don't just trash you because I feel like it. I like to look into things first. And I will say that Dak, for the last couple of years, even though he hasn't won anything big regular season wise, he has one of the best pass accuracies after 25 yards in the NFL. He was phenomenal the last couple of years. So while okay, fine, you can say that about Justin Fields. Could he be that accurate 25 yards plus on a consistent basis? I'm not sure. I think Dak does have one of the better. And again, CeeDee Lamb helps.
And that offensive line.
Yeah, which is falling apart now. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah, it's old.
Take Tyreek away and Tua's ass. That's true. I'm not a Tua fan at all. I think Tua's overrated. I think he has been overrated since college football.
Even with Tyreek, he's still ass.
So are you definitely taking Fields over Dak?
It's close.
I just think arm for me is so important. It's a passing league.
And I've watched Justin for forever. You know what I mean? I watched him his whole career at Ohio State.
You're an Ohio State fan.
Yes, I watched him there. The Bears situation was dicey, to say the least. I think with just a half decent coaching and a half decent weapons around him, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with Justin Fields.
Well, as it stands right now, so obviously we can do the shoulda coulda. If we put him here, we put him there. I mean, it's like saying if you put Jalen Hurts in Carolina, would he win games? No, you can't win by yourself. You can't win by yourself.
Yeah.
So just side by side comparison of what we know, and that's all we're really aiming at here. Is what we know,
right?
Because obviously we can say something about Kirk Cousins. How he's going to be phenomenal this year. Let's compare Fields to this Kirk. We get to compare him with what we know. Right. So with what we know, without doing the scenarios, Dak or Fields just straight up as talent in general. That's what we're aiming at.
Then I guess you have to go with Dak. You know what I mean? Just by what we've seen, because realistically,
majority of what we know. That's all.
Majority of Justin's highlights that we see in Chicago are rushing. Yeah. You know what I mean? He does have the passing. You know what I mean? But the majority of them are his elusiveness and his escapability highlights. You know what I mean?
Now I'm going to ask you, and I'm trying to think of some other guys as well that are a little bit closer in comparison. But from what we've seen, C.J. Stroud or Justin Fields?
C.J. Stroud. I think C.J. is going to be the next up and coming star in the NFL.
So in total, and I'm not going to, we did 9. I'll do one more, and we'll call this segment a wrap, and I'll tell you what I concluded here. The last one I'll ask you. And I'm trying to think of a good one off the top of my head here because I didn't write any of this shit down. I'm just writing down as we go. I'm trying to think of another good quarterback to be a good comparison overall. It's hard because there's not that many good. Some of them are so obvious which way you're going to pick. Like, I'm not going to ask you Gardner Minshew or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar
Jordan
Jackson.
Love?
That's a good one. Yeah, Jordan Love or Justin Fields. Who are you taking there? For the record, I'm taking Jordan Love. Again, for me, it's arm talent. We're in a passing NFL league. Like, again, I'm not saying Justin can't throw the ball. I'm just saying based on what I've seen, whether it's fair or not, I have to take.
This might be the toughest one out of all of them. I'm going to go with Jordan Love just for the simple fact he's been mentored the past 2 years by a Hall of Fame
Larry
quarterback.
Schreiker. How's it going, man? Steve, welcome to the show.
And that has to count for something.
Yeah. Okay, so you went with. I'm sorry. So you went with
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love. Okay. So just so you know, so we did 10 total. You went 7 against Justin Fields. You went 3-4. So it's fair to say that you're not sure of what you're going to get yourself into yet. So you're not bought in. You're not bought out. You're kind of.
I have a very good general idea, but it's not quite set in stone because we haven't seen what he can do with a competent football team. All those other quarterbacks have competent football teams.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's always hard to draw. I mean, because comparisons are all based on what we know. I mean, like we could sit here and say, what if you put, let's say you put Jalen Hurts in the, 90, Niners team, how they, I mean, we could do whatever we want. I mean, you could play those scenarios. I mean, for me, when I'm doing a comparison, I do take that into account, obviously, to an extent, but I also like to think, like, for me, all I want to see from Justin Fields is the arm talent get better because, again, he can run like hell. I mean, he reminds me of a Michael Vick with no arm.
But also that the Pittsburgh Steelers running game is going to help Fields out tremendously.
I hope so.
He's never had a running game in Chicago.
The wide receivers is what has to get better, in my opinion. I mean, right now I have him as a C-. That's what I have him at. Bubba has him at a C+, I believe. I think C- only because we haven't seen anything from Calvin Austin III yet. We've seen pretty much nothing. And really, between Pickens is all you got right now. I mean, I know you picked up Van Jefferson, but he's a number 3, number 4.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make that Ayuk move or get somebody in this draft that's really impressive. Otherwise, I feel like it's going to be a tough slog. I mean, again, like you said, I mean, it sucks for Hurt Fields because they finally put guys in Chicago and then they trade them. I mean, they get Keenan Allen, they get all these guys. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I've also seen him linked to Terry McLaurin as well.
I don't see that happening. I think with Washington, they're going to realize the same thing. They have to draft a quarterback here in the number 2 pick. And the problem is, why draft a quarterback number 2 if you're going to remove all of the talented players away from him? And right now, McLaurin,
because that would be the Washington thing to do.
Yeah, but I can't see them doing it. I mean, that's like the Bears. I mean, like for example, they brought in guys like Keenan Allen, knowing they were going to trade Fields because they had to have somebody proven for Caleb Williams to have to be able to have some success. And I feel like with the Commanders, trading away to McLaurin would make absolutely no sense. You're going to bring in a young quarterback and go, who are you going to throw to? Good luck.
Because they lost Curtis Samuel as well.
Yeah, he went elsewhere. But so now that we've talked a little bit about some comparisons, we talked about some stuff. Now, obviously, guys, and again, we will have this pinned. I promise we will get this pinned on the page one of these days. We do want your mock drafts. Remember, first 32 picks of the first round, most correct picks wins a $50 gift card, Visa gift card, so you can spend on whatever you want. So again, by all means, you can do it now even without it having submitted. Feel free to email us at NFLEliteBanner@gmail.com. I did fix the email, by the way. And send it. It can be a PFF, whatever mock draft site you want to use. Fill out the first 32 picks. Submit it to NFLEliteBanner@gmail.com. We will keep track. 1 entry per participant, and it might only be $50 for $50, man, just for something we do for fun anyway. I do a mock draft every year for free just to tickle myself, let alone win $50.
Now, here's the thing, Rich. I thought about this earlier. Okay, what if they have the player correct, but not the team in the specific slot?
We can bypass that. We'll count that. I mean, as long as the player's in the right spot, it means they didn't slide, they didn't come up, whatever. That's perfectly acceptable. So as long as you get the player in the right spot, team or not, like if you say Marvin Harrison number 4, and the Cardinals trade the number 4 pick to the Giants, and the Giants take Marvin Harrison 4, we will count that. You still got the pick correct. You still put them in the right spot. And with this year not having a sure, obvious layout, because we have no idea what's going to happen with all the free agency stuff that's happened, I have to accept that. So submit your first 32 picks. As long as the player is in the right slot, person with the most will win. It is not rigged at all. Me and him will participate, although we will not actually have a chance to win.
No.
And we will even invite you to come on the show just to prove that it was legitimate. We'll ask for your feedback if you want to come on. If not, we'll take a statement, whatever. But moving on. So talking about the draft, mock draft trades. Now, obviously, everybody's going to get into submitting their picks, and feel free to do trades if you want to. Like I said, it can be a different team as long as the player spot is right. So feel free to be as wild as you want with your mock drafts. Just know you can only submit one. If we come across somebody who submitted more than one, we're just going to pretty much count whatever one that we end up seeing first. So just keep that in mind. We might see your worst one rather than the one that you might think is your best. But mock draft trade. So for freight trade, let's try to keep it early in the draft because we can sit here and talk about second rounds and late first and whatever.
We ain't getting in there. Yeah.
What trades do you see right now that could definitely be realistic here? Top 10, top 15. How many teams do you think might trade up or trade down?
I mean, it's came out that Arizona is taking offers for that number 4 pick. They're interested in stockpiling picks and moving down. I don't see how that makes any sense for the franchise. They need a wide receiver. They've already, and this is the thing, history could possibly repeat itself for that franchise. Larry Fitzgerald, generational talent wide receiver you drafted. Yep. Marvin Harrison could be in that same category.
He belongs in the conversation.
Yeah. Yes. He's right
from
there.
What we've seen, we can talk about translation to the NFL, whatever, but from what we've seen, there's nothing.
Because we can pretty much both agree that those top 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. Each one of those teams need a quarterback.
And I think all 3 are going to bust, just for a wild prediction. No, I truly believe that all 3 are overrated. Caleb to me is, and we'll get to that in a minute, but Caleb to me is a surefire bust. I'm sorry. By far the most over dramatized prospect I've ever seen since I wasn't really old enough to understand it, but since Ryan Leaf went to the Chargers. And somebody said that in the comment section. And by far, this is the most dramatic comparison you can think of. Because Peyton Manning went number 2. Which is insane to think that Ryan Leaf went over Peyton. Peyton, the 2-time winner Super Bowl, obviously multiple MVPs in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And Ryan Leaf is now doing reports on other busts. I'm like, he should have a podcast called Pot Meet Kettles, what his podcast should be called. But anyway, go ahead.
But you got teams like Minnesota and the Raiders down there within striking distance of putting a package together to jump up there, because both of those teams are got to be competing for a quarterback. You know what I mean? They got to have the same guy on their draft boards, and it's going to be a game of who can outsmart who and who can out leverage who to get the guy that they want.
But my concern is, if you're Arizona, I mean, the reason why it's so hard to pick the trade partner for me is how far are you willing to trade down? Like, okay, you want to shop the number 4 pick. However, how many, like, what do you, so where do you fall to, right? I mean, there's not that many teams looking for a quarterback now. There's some, but not nearly as many as there was a week and a half ago.
Yeah, but if you're sitting there at number 4, you're talking about you could possibly get a first-round draft pick for next year's draft as well, on top of that team's
I get that
first-round pick.
But I think the problem is, and I think Arizona may go QB one day in the future, but there's no good quarterback drafts coming for the next couple of years. Not only that, I don't think there's
a couple next year.
I don't think there's another prospect as much.
I'm solely convinced that Quinn Ewers is going to be a good NFL quarterback.
But there's not another player that's been highlighted as much as Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, if there wasn't so many quarterback needy, let's say, for example, the first team on the board drafted, like, let's say it was like the Panthers, for example. Like, if they didn't give up as much as they gave up to get the first pick, I'm pretty sure they would go Marvin Harrison this year in the first pick of the draft.
Well, bro, he asked teams if he needed to work out.
Yeah.
And all these NFL executives said absolutely not. Like, your draft status is not going to change whether you work out or not.
So Minnesota and the Raiders could make sense depending on what they give in return. I'm looking at it here.
Well, and Denver. You could throw Denver in there as well.
Well, Denver could. I mean, that's possible. So, like, I mean, Minnesota, Denver, Raiders are all 11, 12, 13. That's where they fall in the pick status right now. They're 3 picks in a row. Maybe even the Colts could make a move there if they don't, depending on what they have, because they got Gardner Minshew's gone.
Yeah, but they just drafted Richardson last year.
Oh crap! I wasn't even thinking. I forgot about the injury.
And then they got Joe Flacco.
No, I would definitely stick with Anthony Richardson. I think he's gonna be a good talent. I really do. He showed flashes of greatness before he got hurt. He was my backup on fantasy league. I had to get rid of him pretty early in the year. But yeah, I would say that those are probably the most realistic. I would say the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Vikings would all make sense. I think if I'm the Cardinals, though, I'm shopping at a very, very high value. I mean, you're offering me at least this year's first and next year's first, and maybe even a second, third, fourth round pick, whatever it is. There's always some fillers in the backside, like a 5th and a 7th or whatever. But you're going to have to give me one hell of a package to move to number 4, because I know you need a quarterback. Like, that's the thing. If those 3 teams are calling, how bad do you want that QB in the future? How bad do you want it?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Not only that, but we're going to have to pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. by giving you this pick. We have to assume that we're going to trade so far back, we're not going to be able to get him anymore. So for us to get rid of a highlight talent, and for
because we've already, like, between the two of us, we've already kind of discussed, like, Roma Duzier is not on the same wavelength as Marvin Harrison.
He's good, but he's not the same.
But he's the number 2 in this draft. He's the number 2 receiver.
I talked to you on the phone today, and I told you I put a Marvin Harrison. If I have to rate based on what I've seen, Marvin's getting a 10 rating. I mean, great hands, great speed, great route runner, good down the field, good short, good intermediate. Like, there's really not anything I've seen that's a weakness of his. And I would give a Dunze like a 7.5, maybe an 8 on a good day. I mean, that's where he's at, in my opinion. Now, again, who knows what happens in the NFL? Obviously, like I said about the Alabama wide receivers, I mean, that was a whole kinds of a cluster F, and a lot of teams got that wrong. One guy's in prison, one guy just got traded to the Browns within 3 years, and one guy's a Pro Bowler for the Philadelphia Eagles. So who knows? Another trade that I could see, and this is something that I thought about too, is I could also see Atlanta trading down. I mean, with the number 8 pick, they just gave up a ton of money, whatever it is. They might even look to trade down a little bit. I mean, number 8, if you can move back, again, same teams we can even talk about trading with. You could trade with teams like the Vikings, whoever doesn't get a deal with Arizona. 8 is still a high pick. 8 is definitely a pretty good pick to give away, and you're only going to give up 4 or 5 spots. And we've seen drafts before in the first round. You can get a lot just for a 4 point.
And they have to be going offensive line to protect their $45 million investment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is, though, I think some of those guys might still be there with all the quarterback, especially if the trades happen that we're talking about. Let's say, for example, Arizona does trade their 4 away. They're going to drop out. They're going to get a quarterback. So your first 4 picks of the draft will be QBs at that point if Arizona does trade their pick to one of those teams. Which means, Chargers.
Here's a wild one for you. Could we possibly throw the Jets in that equation as well? Because Well, you got to think Aaron Rodgers is getting older. He's coming off an Achilles injury. They don't have anybody behind him. You're trading Zach
At,
Wilson.
at, that,
He's getting out of the building.
at that point, you're going to sit at. You're at 10. You're going to sit at 10. You're not going to bother trading up 3-4 spots. I mean, in my opinion, even if they're sold in the sweepstakes, let's say Jaden Daniels, Drake May, whatever, those guys are all going to be gone well before you get there. Not to mention, if you're not willing to trade too much, the highest you might get from 10 is maybe 6 with the Giants, maybe 7 with the Titans, something like that. But you're not going to get high enough. There's nowhere high enough. And the Titans are going to go QB as well, most likely, depending on who's available. So, what you got to realize if you're the Jets, you're in front of.
They got shoot, what's his name?
I sit.
Will Levis. Will Levis.
He sucks. He's garbage. I would draft a quarterback.
He's the most
anyway.
ripped quarterback in the NFL.
I would go QB anyway. But I mean, if I'm the Jets, I sit at 10. I see what happens in front of me. Obviously, if the quarterbacks start piling up and I start seeing trades move in, I know there's not any quarterbacks left that I like. Maybe I rush and make a trade then and move up 2 spots or 3 spots, whatever it is. But for starters, I'm sitting at 10. I mean, I'm not gonna panic and hit the panic button because, like you said, you're gonna have a quarterback being gone. Well, I think Bo Nix will still be available at 10. I think Bo Nix will still be sitting there. I think he's very comparable to an Aaron Rodgers as far as arm talent itself. He has a missile of an arm. I think he would learn. I think he would be a really good quarterback to sit behind a player like Aaron Rodgers.
Because how many years realistically do you think Aaron Rodgers has in New York?
I would say 2 or 3 times. I would say 3 at a crazy expectation. I would say 2 is fair. It's all about health. I mean, if he gets hurt again, then maybe less than that. But I would say 2
so
or 3.
If you're the Jets, are you riding and dying with Aaron Rodgers and you're going to go get him like a Brock Bowers or something and forget about a quarterback unless one slides down to you in the 2nd round or 3rd round?
For right now. Because, I mean, think about it. I mean, if I'm the Jets, I have one of the best defenses in the NFL on paper. I have phenomenal skill set players with Garrett Wilson. We have a great offense built up, one of the better running cores in the National Football League as well. And as long as he can come back and be healthy, we have an MVP, All-Pro, Hall of Fame talent at quarterback, which is the only thing that we were really missing to get us over the hump. Even last year, they won way more games than they should have. But phenomenal defense. The Jets are my favorite team to watch. And my father-in-law is a Jets fan. My fiance is a Jets fan. But I will say that defense. I'm a defense guy. You know how I am. I'm always hyping up defense. Everybody else's offense today. I'm not. I'm a big defense guy.
Bro, I'm a Steelers fan. Of course, I'm all about defense.
And I love watching that Jets defense, man. I mean, with Sauce Gardner and them guys, and again, it's going to be hard to keep all them guys at a certain point. The contracts are going to start adding up. It's going to be very, very hard to keep them all. So if you want to win, you are in your best win now scenario. So if you go number 10, let's say you stay at 10. Who knows? Maybe a Brock Bowers is available, like you said. Maybe there's another corner that you want to pair up with a Sauce Gardner. Maybe there's a safety in there that you like. Whatever it is, offensive lineman maybe. Whatever they want to do, they have access of doing. There's a lot that they can do. So right now, if I'm the Jets, I'm in win now. So we haven't won anything since 2010. I have the best roster I've had probably since Namath and the Jets back in the day. I want to win now. The Jets fans have been waiting for a very long time. We haven't won since the 60s, 70s. But with that being said, now obviously we're talking about some trades and some crazy scenarios, and anything can happen. The NFL always surprises us. Like somebody said the other day, NFL stands for not for long. So you have an expectation, and that changes very quickly. Who's your top 5?
Realistic top 5? Like how do I think it's going to go down?
And you can even consider your trade in there if you want to. But I mean, if you want to stick with it I'll tell you what. Bears number 1. Who you go?
Oh, it's a guarantee that they're taking Caleb Williams.
I agree, Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they surprised everybody and go like Jaden Daniels last minute. We've seen stuff like that happen where we thought we knew the number 1 was and it ended up being like somebody else. Number 2, Washington Commanders. So if you already have Williams gone, so we both have Williams gone at 1. Number 2, Washington.
I think they go Drake May. A lot of people think Jaden Daniels is going there. I think they're looking at Drake May because Cliff Kingsbury has worked with Drake May and the quarterback that they just traded, Sam Howell. So there's some familiarity there. I think they go with Drake May.
I agree, but I think the only problem I have with that is he reminds me too much of Sam Howell. I mean, they come from the same college. They play a very similar game. They move very similarly. Some people would argue and say May's arm talent is better. However, I don't think that was Howell's problem.
But that has to be why they brought Cliff in, because he's worked with Caleb Williams and he's worked with Drake May. They were going to get either one of those guys.
He was the favorite for the Eagles job for a while there. And we ended up signing, ended up signing out more instead. Right. But those were our top 2. All right, so number 3, Patriots.
That's where I think Jaden Daniels goes. I think he goes.
So you're not buying into the hype that the Patriots super reach and take J.J. McCarthy here?
No.
Some Patriots fans are hoping to take McCarthy. I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
People were calling him the next Michigan great to come into Pittsburgh, come into New England and surprise everybody and pull a Tom Brady career. It's not going to happen.
And then my next two picks, I think, are going to both be wide receivers. I think Arizona comes to their senses and holds pat and gets Kyler, that big play receiver. They take Marvin Harrison. And then I think the Giants, who drastically need wide receivers,
five is the Chargers.
Oh, it's the Chargers?
Giants are at 6.
Okay, Chargers. They just got rid of actually 2 of their wide receivers, so they have to go Malik Neighbors there.
So you don't think Dunze is going to go above Neighbors?
No, I think Neighbors goes next.
Really? I thought you said that Dunze was the next best receiver in the draft. I thought you were going to call him that.
I completely forgot about Neighbors, to be honest with you.
So I
think Neighbors has higher upside, just for the simple fact of playmaking.
Yeah.
Dunze is kind of that big, he's like a Mike Evans essentially. Yeah. Is how I would compare him to.
My 4 has to be Marvin Harrison. I mean, if you're the Cardinals and you don't trade away this pick, I don't trade it at all. I'm not even considering trading this pick if I'm them.
Actually, I think Dunze probably goes to the we go to 6.
If somebody is offering me the craziest deal of a lifetime, sure, I'll give you number 4. But there's no other way. I mean, I have to go Marvin Harrison. I mean, like you said, like Larry Fitzgerald, like every receiver they've drafted has usually turned out to be pretty solid. I mean, as far as like their big ones, like top 10 picks.
Yeah. Like it's got to be the most obvious thing.
Yeah.
Like your franchise needs a wide receiver. Like you need somebody out there.
You
have nobody.
And 5 for me used to be Brock Bowers. That's who I thought the Chargers were going to go with. They got rid of Gerald Everett. They don't have a tight end at all right now. But again, with Mike Williams being gone and Keenan Allen being traded, it's very hard to believe they don't go receiver here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, if they don't go Brock Bowers, I agree. I think they're going to go. I think they're actually going to go with Dunze, but they might go Neighbors. I think Neighbors is like overhyped too. But either one, you can pretty much shuffle that between 5 and 6. I agree. I think no matter what, one's going to go, then the other's going to go.
But here's the thing, Rich. Like, and you have to believe it somewhat because it's translated into the NFL. The 2 best schools to get a wide receiver from is Ohio State and LSU. Like, they have the track records of having the best wide receivers coming out of their schools. So I think it's a safe risk, if that makes any sense.
So NFL.com released today that where'd it go? It didn't pop up like it was supposed to. Well, they're saying here Brock Bowers falls to 10 and goes to the Jets. That'd be a phenomenal move for the Jets, by the way. Love that move. I'll tell you right now, he's one of my favorite people in this draft. I hype him up all the time. But their expectation right now is Caleb Williams 1, Jaden Daniels 2, May goes 3, McCarthy goes 4 to the Vikings. They're saying that the Vikings will send their two first-round picks and a 4th-round selection to Arizona for the number 4 overall pick and an early 3rd-round selection, securing the quarterback of the future.
I just don't understand his hype. I really don't. It doesn't make any sense. He didn't have a very great college career.
But that would work out perfect for the Chargers because that would actually give the Chargers Marvin Harrison Jr. And that's exactly what they're predicting here.
They'd luck out.
He would fall to 5. Neighbors goes to the Giants at 6. Joe Alt to the Tennessee Titans at 7. Roma Dunze would go to the Cardinals at 8, which would not be a bad turnout for the Cardinals. I mean, it's like you're getting one of the next best. Dallas Turner, edge rusher for the Bears at 9, and then Brock Bowers for the Jets at 10. But what's crazy is, and they have 12 to be in Bo Nix and some of those guys. But what's crazy is they also have the Philadelphia Eagles trading up to 16 for Quinton Mitchell, the corner out of Toledo. They're not saying what we're giving up for them. So they did not get into specifics on that trade. They gave specifics on the Vikings move up, but they did not get specifics on the Eagles trade. I don't see the Eagles trading up 6 spots. I can only imagine we have to give up to do so. But what's funny is they actually have the Chiefs trading from 32nd to 19th to land Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy.
Wow.
That's
huge.
A big
jump.
That's 13 picks. That means that would be the Los Angeles Rams with the 19th pick.
Yeah.
What the hell would you have to give up to jump almost? Oh, so it's saying here, the Rams have historically traded down, so they could be willing trade partner getting Casey's 1st and 2nd round selections in return. I don't like that for the Rams though.
That's not enough.
Because now you're going to fall into the 32nd pick of the 1st round, the 32nd pick of the 2nd round. Which, if you play Madden, they basically consider it a 3rd and a 2nd and a 3rd round pick at that point.
Yeah.
you're getting rid of a top. You're getting rid of a no. There's no way.
That doesn't make any sense. There's no beneficial for the Rams on that trade.
No,
That hurts them more than it helps them.
I don't see that happening, to be honest with you. I think that's insane. I mean, for the Chiefs, that'd be a huge win. Chiefs is a huge win. But for the Rams, I mean, you got some good pieces, but, like, you got holes to fill now. Like, I mean, there's a guy like Jerzon Newton who expected to go to the Rams 32nd. I guess what they're trying to say is he would still be available, which is why they would do that. But that blows my mind. I don't know. I don't see that happening again. Great move for the Chiefs if they can get him for that.
That'd be like, did you forget to throw in L'Jarius Sneed in this trade, or what?
Yeah,
like, there's got to be more.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying Buffalo's going to trade up with Green Bay, and they're going to take Byron Murphy the second at 25. They're trading up to get him. I mean, there's just some wild trade predictions in here. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I can't see that happening.
I just love how they give all the specific trade stuff, but they don't mention the Eagles one. I'm like, okay, what are the Eagles giving up to move up 6 spots? Everybody else has trade expectations.
They already know Howie Roseman. They know it's a Pepsi machine.
Howie gives up. I don't know. He gives up Boston Scott, a 7th rounder and a 6th rounder to move up to the 16th pick.
Yeah.
Oh, and they owe him $5 million just for the hell of it. They tossed in $5 million.
Yeah.
It's insane, dude. It's insane. But real fast, so we'll hit on this. This is our last topic of the night. Obviously, we're almost at an hour. We can go a little bit over. It doesn't matter. But okay, so star or bust. We're just gonna hit on a couple. I'm not gonna go through the whole list of guys. We'd be here for the rest of the night. Caleb Williams, star or bust.
I'm gonna say in the middle.
So he's a Pro Bowl talent, but I don't know, all pro talent. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to win games, but you don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl anytime.
Yeah.
I don't think he's even going to be that good. I really don't. I mean, I think the team around him has gotten better. I love the.
But we know that's what makes guys look good. Unless you're like on Pat Mahomes level and you can have me and you out there and they win a Super Bowl.
I just don't see it. I think the Bears still have way too much work to do in other. I think they've gotten a lot better. I think the DeAndre Swift spot works out for you, especially if you bring in a rookie quarterback like Caleb who likes to move a little bit. Keenan Allen's great, but he also had some injuries. He missed at least 2 games the last 3 seasons in a row. So what are you going to do in those 2 games when he's not able to show up? You got great tight ends now with Everett and Kmet, but I mean, you can only throw to the tight end so many times before you got to make some kind of throw over the top at some point.
Still don't have a running back either.
All right, Jaden Daniels, Washington. If he does go,
I'm sorry, they got DeAndre Swift. My bad.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah,
Jaden Daniels, star or bust.
Bust.
Agreed. Guys like him never last long. And not only that, but he also got the bad luck of becoming the Heisman. I feel like that always screws you coming out.
Yeah.
You know my thoughts on this, Drake May.
I'm gonna say bust, but it's not completely his fault.
I will say he will not be on that roster in 2 to 3 seasons. Here's the other problem I have with this. You know, you got to bring in a rookie quarterback. You knew Mac Jones was leaving the whole time. We all knew that his time was done there, whether they traded him or not. But you're going to have a defensive-minded coach. Yet again, did the same thing. You did the same thing before with Mac Jones. You gave him Bill Belichick and whatever else, and you gave him a terrible McDaniels who's been screwing players up for the last decade. Everybody's been trying to give credit for the Brady experiment, which Brady did that, proved it. He did it by himself. I mean, really, Brady was his own animal. Look at Belichick and McDaniels and all them guys when he was no longer around. They're absolute garbage on play calls. Brady was able to cover a lot of that up. Not to mention they had a great defense for a long time. But Drake May, if he does it in New England, I feel bad for him. I think the problem for him is defensive-minded coach for a rookie quarterback doesn't usually translate well in the NFL. And New England's not in a position to win football games right now. I mean, they're in a hard division where all 3 of the other teams are all really good teams. I mean, overall, like Tua sucks in the playoffs, but he is a great regular season quarterback. And whether you like it or not, Hill is still there. Waddle is still there. They have a hell of a run game. They're still going to be a challenge. Their defense is kind of weak now, but you're still going to have a hard time against Miami. Buffalo, I think they're going to struggle a lot defensively, but I think they're still good enough to beat your ass twice a year. And then on top of that, you got to play the Jets, who are going to have Aaron Rodgers come back, who are going to have some smoke on their heels, and one of the hardest defenses in the NFL. And now you're in that division. It's no longer the Tom Brady Patriots, where you played 3 of the worst teams in the NFL every week. You're playing 3 of the better teams. So for me, I'm going to say bust for Drake May. I don't think he has a chance. I think anything that goes to New England has no chance. Yeah. We'll hit on like 2 or 3 more. We're done. J.J. McCarthy.
Bust.
I think I kind of tricked you on this one. I don't say either. I don't think he's going to be relevant enough to be either. I don't see it. I think he's going to be a future backup. He'll be a really good clipboard guy. He'll be like a Chad Henne or something like that one day, just on the sideline.
I think he's one of those. He was a lot like Malik Willis a couple years ago,
Yep.
where the combine overhyped him.
Yep. Well, then we saw. Well, and he got drafted later. Like, oh my god, they drafted him way too late. I can't believe he slid that far. And then we saw what happened. It's like that's why he slid. Sometimes the GMs do get it right, ladies and gentlemen. They get it right.
Now, if we were talking about him getting picked in like the second or third round, it'd be like it's a solid pickup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, third round would have made sense. Second round. The thing that I thought about Kenny Pickett, I thought he was going to be a second, third round guy. When they said that the Pittsburgh Steelers were drafting him in the first round, I was like, oh my god, my Pittsburgh buddies are pissed. But Marvin Harrison Jr., I have him as a star.
I have him as a Hall of Fame.
I think in this draft, he has the highest. Well, you know what? In this draft, he has the highest. If we had to pick one Hall of Famer out of this draft, I would say for me, it would be him. I would actually say Joe Alt might not be far behind. He's a phenomenal left tackle.
Yeah.
I love Joe Alt. I've never hit him.
I've just, I got the privilege to watch him at Ohio State last year and him kind of getting into some games the previous year. And he's made some plays that were just absolutely mind-boggling, where the only person that could catch that ball was him.
All right, and we'll do two more here, and then we'll pop off of here. I know you got another show to get to.
No, I don't. I did that last night.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's right. We're a day late. That's right.
Yes.
Brock Bowers, tight end.
Star.
I think he's going to go down as one of the top 5 tight ends of the next decade. I'm not saying Hall of Famer, but I think over the next decade, once the guys like Kelsey fall off the books,
as long as they utilize him correctly.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: if Aaron Rodgers has him, he will make him look like a stud. He had Richard Rodgers, who nobody ever heard of before, looking like a stud. Jermichael Finley, who was okay. Rodgers may look like a Hall of Famer at times. I mean, if there's one guy you want to throw you the ball, like Robert Tonyan had a phenomenal career under Aaron Rodgers. If he can do that with those guys, this guy's bigger. He's very similar to what Travis Kelce built. But he's faster than Kelce, and he's a better route runner than Kelce. Kelce's just an absolute monster.
I would compare what I'm predicting his rookie season should go a lot like how Sam Laporta's did in Detroit this year.
I think it might be better.
That would be crazy because Sam Laporta had a hell of a year.
I think it might be better. I'm putting him down, and I will say this with confidence. I think in the next couple of seasons, he will be a top 3 tight end in the National Football League. Whether that means Kelce in or not, he will be a top 3. Kelsey's number 1 for me. I mean, I think he's a clear-cut number 1 tight end in the NFL. And you can see it. The Chiefs play really well when he plays well. If he's having an off game, the Chiefs usually struggle and or lose. It's just Super Bowl not included. They just had a crazy game. But I do have Brock Bowers as a future top 3 tight end. I think Laporta's going to be in that conversation of top 5 as well. I mean, there's a lot of good tight ends in the NFL right now, but I think he's going to be great. And I think he's going to be used like a Gronk almost. He's going to be like a receiving tight end who just makes huge plays when it's necessary. I love Brock Bowers. He's my favorite guy to watch in college. Bo Nix. Last quarterback.
I think a lot of it hinges on the situation that he goes to. I could definitely see Star. Or I could possibly see kind of like how I said with Caleb Williams, that in between. I do not think he's going to be a bust. I think he could definitely be a serviceable starter in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, I have him as a star. I mean, again, it depends on the situation. I mean, going to Denver is going to be tough if he does go to Denver here, which they're expecting him to. Denver's going to be a tough spot. I mean, honestly, if I was the number 4 pick, and if I do trade up for the 4 pick, I would take Bo Nix way before McCarthy, just for the record.
The only thing, it's very hard, and it's especially hard to evaluate college quarterbacks nowadays because a lot of them don't play in a pro style offense. It's majority out of
Oregon is. Oregon has always been a pro style offense. Like they've always been that way. I mean, in my opinion, even a lot of the guys I've been watching talk about Bo Nix, like scouts that do like podcasts and stuff like that. He's 24. His birthday's the day before mine, actually, but he's 6 years younger than I am. Prick. I hate being old. You start getting old when you're like older than all the players that are getting drafted every year. Like like when you're a kid, you're like, oh my god, that guy was born in 1978. Jesus, he's old.
Right.
And now it's like, holy crap, 2000 is the age that these quarterbacks are getting drafted. He's born in 2000, dude. He's younger than my baby sister is. But I mean, 6'2", he has the build. I mean, he's 6'2", 24 years old. Dude has a cannon. Absolute monster. He had 6 touchdown passes in a game last year. I think he had two games where he had 5 or more touchdown passes last year against good talent, not just bum teams, not like FCS teams. I mean, Bo showed up when it mattered. I don't know, man. He has the biggest arm I can remember in a draft in a long time. The last time I remember a person being talked about with as strong of an arm was Aaron Rodgers coming out of college. I mean, he had a huge arm. Everybody was like, oh, well, I'm not sure about the rest of them. That's exactly what they're saying about Bo Nix. I'm not saying he's the same, But he's
I'd
getting
like to compare. I'd like to compare his stats to Caleb Williams. Like, why is there such a disparity between the two of them?
Well, that's what blows my mind is, I mean, I think the big thing that's number one is Caleb Williams won a Heisman. You know, he almost won 2 in a row. That's probably a big part of it. You know how these college guys are and these scouts are. For whatever reason, trophies matter, and I don't know why. I hate trophies in that regard.
Yeah, but statistically, usually the guys that win the Heismans don't really have very good NFL careers.
So Bo Nix had 5 years in college, right? 5 years. I think the big problem is they're not thrilled with the Auburn numbers as much as they are with the Oregon numbers. So his first couple of years in Auburn, first year, 2,542 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 picks. That shows me he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I like that. Not a crazy percentage was bad. 57% completion percentage, not good. Next year, he upped his percentage again to 59.9%. 2,415 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. Pretty similar to the year before. But it's also Auburn compared to Oregon. Keep that in mind.
Right.
Next year in Oregon, his numbers jump up again, 61%. So now we're jumping at 2% at a time. 2,294 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. Obviously, he wasn't the starter for any of these 3 years. He kind of just filled in when he had to.
Right, yeah.
Transfers to Oregon because he's being told, hey, you're going to get benched again. He's like, I'm too good for that. First year in Oregon, his percentage jumps 10%, 71.9% completion percentage, 3,593 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Now, here's this one. Now, this is last year, his final year at Oregon. Now, obviously, you can tell right away he's dramatically better in the system. It jumps even more, 77.4% completion percentage, while throwing the ball 61 more times than the year prior, still up this percentage. 4,500 yards, 4,508 yards, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Yeah, that's crazy.
With a quarterback rating of 188.3 for the entire season.
I remember watching Caleb Williams in a couple games where he threw 3 interceptions in one game.
And by the way, in 2022, when he had the 29 touchdown passes and 7 picks, he also had 14 rushing touchdowns for 510 yards on 89 carries.
Yeah,
that's insane. I mean,
so I don't understand the disparity here. I mean, to me, Bo Nix's numbers are better than Caleb Williams.
Well,
and all the other guys.
And I know we're running over late, but I don't care. We're doing this for us at this point. But Caleb Williams' stats, he only played 3 years in college. I can see a little bit, but not really. But so the first year, he only had 211 passing attempts in Oklahoma, 64.5% completion percentage, 1,912 yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 picks. 6 rushing touchdowns, 442 yards total rushing. Next year, 66.6% completion percentage on 500 attempts in USC, 4,500 yards, 42 touchdowns, 5 picks. 10 rushing touchdowns that year. 168.5 rating. And the last year, which is last year, way less attempts, 112 less attempts. So we went from 500 to 388, which tells me that there might not be so much trust in Caleb Williams, by the way, in USC. Because why else? How else can you explain 112 less attempts passing? 3,633 yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. By far, Bo Nix had a dramatically better season than Caleb Williams. And 11 rushing touchdowns, but only 136 yards and on 97 carries. So nothing super impressive there. So I got to agree with you. What the hell makes him so much better than Bo Nix? And not only that.
And they play in the same conference.
And not to mention, though, like for me, what I like to see a lot of, especially when we're looking at rookies, like I said, some things translate, some things don't. As a quarterback, your 40 doesn't matter to me. I don't care about your damn 40. I want to see how you throw the ball.
Right.
The fact that Bo Nix was able to jump to even though it's college, 77, 78% completion percentage means at most he's at least putting the ball in the right spots. Back-to-back years where he never had a year in double-digit turnovers, not even close.
Well, and I'll even dive deeper in it, Rich. That tells me that he actually knows how to read a defense as well.
Exactly. So for me, all the numbers that I want to see are there. What is the average, which is still higher than Caleb? He had, every year he had at least 9.5 or higher yards per attempt, which is still something to look at, by the way. If you're the average fan, maybe you don't look at that, but you should. Not to mention, I mean, again, like passing attempts got higher, but his percentage got better as he threw more. Right. Which goes to show me that we can bring this guy in. He can be a leader. We can be a pass-first offense and be successful because this guy does not turn the ball over a lot. He's obviously able to read defenses. And it's not like we're talking about Oregon as like Bama where he has like every weapon in the world. Oregon was good, but they didn't have we're not talking about Odunze or Marvin Harrison Jr. or those guys. We're talking about good players, but not Marvin Harrison and Odunze worthy or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
It blows my mind why he's not getting more love.
Yeah, I would 100% take Bo Nix over J.J. McCarthy.
I would take half of these quarterbacks over Caleb Williams. I don't think he's going to be that good, man. I really don't see it. I think a lot of these guys might have better careers than Caleb. I just think he demands too much. I think his dad is becoming worse than Lonzo and LaMelo Ball's dad because, well, did you see
Yeah.
oh, we want to skip the rookie contract. My son is so good, he shouldn't have one.
That's not how it works.
You can't do that. The NFLPA
Yeah.
created that for a reason.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be rookie friendly, so he's not trapped in a long-term deal forever. And it's also team friendly. So we're not stuck with this bum for the next 10 years or whatever. And then on top of that, that is true. He did demand ownership rights as well. He wanted stake in the team. So now you're going to get drafted. You don't look that good. You only had 3 years of college, by the way. Really only 2 years starting because Oklahoma you barely played, hence why you transferred. So you've already proven that you don't want to compete. That was what his reason was. He didn't want to compete for the starting job. He thought his 21 touchdowns, 5 picks, or whatever was good enough to be the starter. They said, I don't think so. They didn't trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So you get kicked out of a top program like Oklahoma. You go to USC with Lane Kiffin or whatever his name is. You go there. You have a decent couple of years, don't get me wrong. But I'm concerned. I'm really concerned.
So you're saying Caleb Williams is going to go like Bo Callahan on the Draft Day movie, like the most overhyped player in the draft, and then turns out to be a bust.
He just gives me Ryan Leaf type vibes or Jamarcus Russell vibes. Because Russell was all the same. Like, dude, Russell's going to suck. Vince Young's going to suck. I knew that they were going to suck. Because you can just tell by their persona, their attitude. And again, you can watch a college football game and go, okay, that will translate to the NFL. Like pocket awareness is something that will translate. Footwork will translate. Arm talent, you're not going to get any weaker in 1 year.
No.
And your accuracy.
You're going to get stronger.
And the defense is going to be tighter. It's going to be harder to read. But, your accuracy is still going to be accurate. If you can put the ball where it needs to be and you can lead receivers, which honestly 77.7% completion percentage, tells me that you can lead receivers. You can throw deep. You can throw short. You're capable. And you're able to get the ball in the end zone. 45 touchdowns, only 3 picks or whatever it was. That's asinine. And you had multiple games where you had 5 touchdowns or more passing. That tells me that you're consistent, you don't turn the ball over, and you can put the ball where it needs to be. And in the NFL, the number one reason for turnovers is people leading too far, throwing too far behind, overthrowing. 77.7% might not be his realistic numbers in the NFL, obviously. That might drop, but that might drop to a 68%. Whereas Caleb's already below that. But Caleb's already there in college. If you're 68% your best year in college, that tells me that we might see you around 60, 61 in the NFL. And typically when your average drops that low, I looked up Eli and all them guys, the seasons where they had similar numbers, they threw a lot more turnovers. I'm just saying. I'm very, very concerned. I think Caleb's going to be a reach. I think Chicago messes up again. I thought they should have kept Justin Fields, personally. They should have brought in Keenan Allen like they did. They could have drafted Marvin Harrison 1, did whatever they wanted with pick number 9, or even traded back from 1 to 4 if New England wanted to jump ahead of Washington or whatever it was. You could have sold out and you could have made a really good deal off of this. I don't get Chicago's thinking. If I'm Chicago's GM, I'm shitting a brick because now you have to.
Well, yeah, you can't back out now. There's no way.
Everybody's already buying Caleb Williams jerseys in Chicago.
Right. Yeah, which is mind-boggling.
It's okay. I want to look up a Saquon Barkley jersey. If I were to buy one right now, they don't come in until October 18th. They're so back-ordered. I cannot get a Saquon Barkley jersey until October. Yeah. If I buy it today.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Justin Fields, but he's not going to wear number 1 in Pittsburgh. It's one of those numbers that's not officially retired, but it's retired.
Well, I'm not buying a Saquon jersey anyway, to be fully honest with you. Well, Michael Vick wore number 1, did he not? I'm pretty sure he wore number 1 when he came. Or was it number 2? It might have been number 2.
Number 2.
I think he wore 2. Yeah. I'm seeing 1 in my head for some reason. But I mean, that being said, this is going to be pretty crazy. I think this draft is going to be wild. I think a lot of these picks are going to be off the wall. We've had some bad quarterback drafts the last couple of years, by the way. So
I'm excited. I think it's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of action. I think honestly, the biggest thing for me is I think there's going to be a big name receiver traded during the draft, like how AJ Brown to you guys 2 years ago. I think it repeats itself, and I think it could very well be somebody like Justin Jefferson or the Ayuk trade to Pittsburgh could happen.
Kevin O'Connell made it very clear. He's at the time, at the beginning of the offseason, people asked him if he was going to do that because now that Kirk Cousins is gone.
Of course, they're going to say that.
He said, not in this planet, not in this universe, not in the galaxy. There's a 0% chance that Justin Jefferson gets traded. So unless his camp forces their hand, Justin's not going nowhere. I could see a player though, like the one that we're talking about, Brandon Ayuk. I could see that. He's good, but I'm also
Debo,
concerned.
One of the two.
I'm also concerned
one of the two.
I'm concerned about Ayuk a little bit. I won't get into that today. It'll be another episode if it does happen. I do have some concerns there. I could see Debo, but I think the problem is you'll get more of a return from Ayuk than you would Debo. Debo's aging a little bit, had some bad knee injuries and stuff like that. I think Debo's going to be a little bit harder to move if you're looking for a lot, especially if you want draft capital in this draft. If you're the Niners, you trade Ayuk. There's no way in hell you trade Debo. But yeah, I mean, Ayuk would make sense. I could see that. But there's not a ton of big name receivers. I mean, you're talking about two guys, maybe Ayuk or Jefferson. I mean, I really can't think of anybody else who is. I mean, Keenan's already traded. He was a big one. But there's not that many big receivers. Philly's not trading AJ. AJ even came out and like blew them up on sports radio. Like, I'm not going anywhere, you idiots.
Yeah. I'm not worried about that one.
But I don't see. I don't.
What about like Tennessee trading D-Hop?
But is that a big name receiver still? I mean, at his age now,
he's still productive.
But if I'm Tennessee, I don't do it only because, again, similar situation. What I was saying earlier about the trade earlier was, why would you trade one of your best receivers when you have a guy like Levy still trying to find some success, and you trade away one of the guys that he would rely on the most? Now, again, it depends what you get offered. It depends what the offer is.
And they just got Calvin Ridley to a ridiculous deal as well.
Exactly. So you bring in Ridley, but you keep. I mean, Hopkins 31. He's not as old as I thought he was. Actually, I thought he was older. I thought he's been around a lot longer. But comes off of 1,057 yards, 7 TDs last year on 75 grabs, with 14.1 yards per catch average. I don't see that moving D-Hop. I just don't see it. I think if anything, Tennessee's trying to load up on offense, which is why they got rid of Derrick Henry so they can keep guys like him there. And replace. And they brought up Tony Pollard in much cheaper than Derrick Henry, so that wasn't a terrible transfer. I don't think Pollard's that good, but nonetheless,
yeah,
I don't see it, man. I just think that you're going to keep those guys. I mean, it'd be hard. I think it's going to be really hard pressed to find receivers that are going to be on the move, just because the passing game's so big. Robbie DeFeo said, "I don't want Ayuk. He ain't worth what he wants. D-Hop ain't that dude anymore." Those were his two comments about both of them.
No, he's not what he was in Houston for sure.
But he's not 26 years old anymore.
But he's still a serviceable wide receiver. I would still, if push came to shove, wouldn't mind him having him on my football team.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a team trying to trade for a wide receiver at this point, you try to get as far up in the draft as you can and hope you land one of the big three. Because you're going to get him on a rookie contract, so you're going to save a ton. The problem with trading with a guy like Justin Jefferson is the expected payout for him is $50 to $55 million per year. He's going to be a record-setting thing. The other thing you have to look at too when you think about a guy like Justin Jefferson is,
what about T. Higgins? Do you think Cincinnati hangs on?
I don't think he's a huge name though. I mean, I think he'll land you like maybe a third round. Like, again, he's a good receiver, but I would mark him. Again, he might be the second best receiver on his own team. Which, no matter where he goes, he's going to be a 2 receiver, or he should be a 2 receiver. He's never going to be a true number 1. He has 2 upside, in my opinion. And you can even use him as a 3 if you have a good enough 1-2 punch. You can even slide him in and make him a high-end, prolific 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Ayuk want $24 million? That's the rumor. The rumor is Ayuk wants between 22 and 25. So the problem is you can't just think about, okay, are these guys going to get traded? It's also what teams can afford to do this, because Dallas is linked to some receivers. They can't afford that kind of money. Pittsburgh, they're not going to, and they're not going to be able to.
No, they're not getting Ayuk.
They're not going to get Ayuk.
I can tell with certainty that's not going to happen.
And there's no way you're getting Jefferson there. And the problem with Jefferson is he's such a high cap hit. There's not many teams that can take on a $50 to $55 million contract without having to restructure half their team or start cutting tons of pieces to get them. Wow. And Jefferson's definitely generational talent, but is he that big of a player to where God forbid? And another thing you got to remember is God forbid doesn't pan out. I mean, you're going to have to guarantee him probably more than half of that contract to make him happy. So $55 million a year, let's say 3 years, we're talking about $165 million 3-year deal. You're going to have to guarantee probably 140 of that. And God forbid he was just a product of the system. I'm not saying he was, but let's just say he ends up being a product of the system, or he already had some injury problems, obviously. He goes out for a season and comes back and he's only average. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
For a position that you can find a lot of solid receivers and be just as good. I mean, I'd rather have 3 average.
Especially coming off a year ravaged with injuries.
Well, let's think about $50 million. Like right now, A.J. Brown is only making $13 million. Even when we re-signed Devontae Smith, he'll probably be about $15 million. So it's $28 million for two guys. I'm not saying that this per se. I'm just saying, like, if you're a team, you got to think about it as I can go sign 3 or 4 guys and have 4 really good receivers for $50 million, or do I go out and get one receiver and hog tie myself at $50 million, killing my cap, and now I can't do anything anywhere else. It's tough, man. If it was Madden, turn the salary cap off, everybody would want him. I'll give you my entire 2nd through 7th rounders picks. You can have all of them. Just give me JJ.
Yeah.
And I'll pay him $80 million a year because who cares? My salary cap's turned off. But in real world, and $50 million is a lot of money. I mean, that's almost a quarter of the salary cap or a fifth of the salary cap in total. So I don't see him ever getting that kind of money, by the way. I don't see any team paying him that. He might want that, but Lamar also wanted like 55 a year. That took a very long time.
Right. It could go down. Yeah.
And he's 2 MVPs. I mean, and he's still having a hard time getting the money he deserves. So I don't know. I can't imagine that. Quarterback's the most important position on the field. I mean, if Lamar's not getting, if he's having a hard time finding 55 with the Ravens, and he even got to shop around for a while and nobody else was willing to pay 55, I can't imagine Jefferson pulling 55. Because if you are a team with that much space in cap, what does your quarterback situation actually look like?
What about like Denver? Like with their fire sales going on, somebody like Cortland Sutton could possibly be something somebody would want.
It depends on where they go in the draft. I mean, the problem for me, if I'm a GM, and we've talked about this with a couple different teams now, it's just so hard to trade that top receiver that you have, because if you do so, and you've already traded Judy away, if you trade Sutton as well, who's the next receiver on that depth chart?
They're going to have to draft. They're going to have to draft a receiver with their quarterback.
But they're going to go quarterback first round. So I mean, how many good, talented receivers are going to be left come second, third?
I mean, there is some. You got that big kid out of South Carolina that Debo 2.0. We'll see what happens. But
the problem is, and I'm looking right now, I mean, the receivers that they have right now, I've never heard of. I mean, I heard of them, but like Marvin Mims Jr. is your slot receiver. Tim Patrick is your starting right side receiver, and Cortland Sutton is your other one. The next best receiver you have to talk about is Phil Dorsett, who's not that good, but he's the most notable name.
Right.
So right now you don't have a receiver. Like Cortland Sutton, I guess, but he's going to get double covered like crazy as of right now because he's the only guy that you have.
Right.
I would feel so bad if you go out and you draft a guy like Bo Nix and you put him into an offense where all he has is Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick for his starting receivers.
Teams do it all the time, and then they wonder why their quarterbacks don't succeed.
I can't imagine trading Sutton, because at that point your top receivers would be Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims Jr.
Well, that's why they traded Judy, was because they wanted to give Marvin Mims more targets.
Well, I'm okay, because the rumor has been since last trade deadline. This is huge for me as an Eagles fan. There's been a lot of rumors since last year that Howie was almost got him, but there was a couple small things they couldn't agree on. Philadelphia's been very, very big on Surtain Jr. That would be huge. Could you imagine if Philadelphia were to add him to that secondary? I would be, oh my God, don't let me on this podcast next week if that happens, because I will not shut the hell up for a half hour. I will be how you were when you first started getting all these big names. I will be the same way as you are with Patrick Queen, but probably even more dramatic. I will say, though, and I think you can agree with me on this, this has probably been the most interesting, maybe not the best or whatever you want to call it, by far the most interesting, intriguing, and confusing offseason I can remember in a very long time.
Yeah. I've never been engaged in an offseason as a Steelers fan as I have this offseason. Because usually we're not that active. And if we are active, it's like the tier 2, tier 3 guys that we're picking up. We're not going after these big guys. We don't give $14 million contracts to middle linebackers.
Well, and it doesn't matter what team you're a fan of. I mean, you're notable. You're either excited because you made a ton of moves, like a Washington, a Giants, the Eagles, the Steelers. Plenty of teams out there made a lot of moves, or you're frustrated and you're confused because you're Dallas and your owner said you're going all in and you've re-signed a long snapper. Right. I mean, no matter what, it's just been this whole offseason has made no sense to me so far. And that's why with this draft, I am expecting a ton of curves. I do not think this is going to go exactly as we expected. Maybe the top 5 will, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some crazy trades. Again, it could be a receiver. Who knows? I mean, who knows what receiver goes? Who knows what defensive players might go with corners, and there's a lot of teams that need corners. There could be a lot of moves, and a lot of us right now are probably thinking there's no way that never happens. But that's why I can't argue with you too much, because who knows? It's the NFL these days. With how this all season's gone, if you would have told me Kirk Cousins was getting $45 million, or Jerry Jeudy was getting $58, or somebody was going to give Chase Young $13 million with a neck operation taking place, or the Steelers were going to sign Russ and trade Kenny and then trade for Fields and do all this crazy stuff at quarterback,
Right.
I would have called you a psychopath.
Right.
I never would have believed you. It doesn't make sense. It's not. It's not logical until you saw it. You're like, they did what?
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah.
One more time, I have to make sure I heard that. Are you sure that's what the Steelers just did? Because the Steelers never make quarterback moves. I mean,
no.
They dealt with, they had Big Ben for a while. Obviously, Maddox was never that great, but they kept him as long as they could until they couldn't sell him to the fan base anymore. We talked about somebody today.
Well, it was because Big Ben came in when he was hurt, and you weren't taking Big Ben out.
Yeah, but you took Cordell Stewart. You tried to ride that train until the wheels never really existed, but until they fell off, I guess. Prior to him, Bubby Brister.
Cordell was before his time. Cordell was before his time. If he
I think he'd be good today.
2000s.
The other guy I think would be phenomenal. I said the same thing. I think Cordell would be good. Now his passing ability was awful though. He had a lot of turnover problems.
Yeah.
One quarterback I would love to see today. I'm not sure if you remember him or not. He was a Pro Bowler multiple times. Aaron Brooks from the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, with him and
huge arm, great running ability. Could you imagine him in a modern day pro style offense? I mean, he had
a cannon. He had a cannon. Yeah.
I say the same thing about a lot of guys. You can say the same thing about, if Steve Young would have been allowed to run as much as he could have. He didn't run nearly as much as he could have. Randall Cunningham, which he ran a lot for his time, but imagine him today. He probably would never stop running. And Michael Vick, with his passing ability in today's league, would probably tear this entire league apart. And with the way the penalties are now, tackling him would be almost impossible. You can't hit him high, you can't hit him low, you got to hit him in the middle. Good luck with that. Right. Good luck lining up Michael Vick and trying to tackle him because that guy was so quick. It was like he was sliding on Crisco.
He was a dog.
But this is going to be a wild rest of the offseason. It's funny because a lot of other podcasters have taken off for the rest of the offseason. And I'm like, dude, this is the wrong offseason to take off for. Because there have been years, though, where I won't lie. Like I did a podcast with John Collier before, and there's no content the whole time. And free agency is pretty stale. Like, there's a couple guys got signed. Yeah, woohoo. Two small trades. This 4-string receiver got traded here for a 5th-round pick. And, the draft is coming. Woohoo. But this has been like newsworthy every time I open my damn phone in the morning.
Yeah. Robbie, I agree with you. They do need to get another receiver to go with Pickens or
Pickens did not cry his way out of Pittsburgh.
Yes, he did, Robbie. I agree with you.
Even if he
crybaby.
Even if he wasn't an Eagle. And here's the thing. He's scared of competition. He doesn't want to be a backup. If he didn't want to be a backup, and you guys might not realize this, but you have control over your trade destination a lot of the time. Yeah. I mean, look at Justin Fields. They even said the only reason why they got a terrible return for him is because Fields left them limited on which teams he was willing to go to. That is the only reason why there was nearly no return. He basically picked the Pittsburgh Steelers. He handpicked them. And the Steelers were only willing to give what they gave. So for the Bears, they were trying to do right by Justin, and they were trying to do right by themselves to get something back. And I think deep down they're hoping that Russell Wilson sucks as bad as he did in Denver and they get a higher round pick. But that was not Chicago's fault. They got nothing out of that trade. I mean, Justin Fields had their hands tied. And again, that's what a franchise should do. Play right by the player as well. And they probably could have got a lot more for him. I mean, rumors were they were getting a lot better offers, but the reason why they weren't able to trade him, the reason why we waited so long was not like it wasn't them like we thought it was. It was actually Fields saying, "Nope, no thank you. Nope, no thank you."
Well, and those teams had established starters too.
Yeah. So
Pittsburgh, it's an open competition.
Yeah, and I think the problem is the rest of the competition out there was either they already signed a big name free agent quarterback, or there was no weapons to be had if he went there. He was going to leave Chicago to go to a very similar situation. And I think Pittsburgh was aware of that. I'm sure his agent told them, like, hey, just offer them whatever you want because they can't say no. So Pittsburgh definitely sleazed their way into that deal.
I'm rooting for Kenny. I hope he's the best.
He ain't gonna play.
You guys have ever had. I hope he's the number 2 guy that Philadelphians think of for their athletes wearing gloves on their hands.
No, Nick Foles wore a glove too.
Kenny Pickett or Rocky Balboa? Who are you going with?
Get the hell out of here, dude. He can't feel the gloves, let alone the shoes of Rocky Balboa. Okay. But I will say, again, I hope I don't mind him being there. I mean, it's nice to have a guy who just came off of the start being a starter as a backup. It's very rare that you get a guy who started last season as a backup. Typically, you're taking a career backup as a backup
until he comes in and your offensive drives are less than 10 seconds.
Well, I'm curious. No, I'm curious though, because I mean, like I said, again, you guys had some issues over there. Whatever, you had things going on, bad offensive coordinators, and again, Philadelphia's offensive line's better. I think we can agree on that. Overall, our wide receiver core is definitely better. Running ability with Saquon, if he stays healthy, is pretty much equal, I would say. Again, I mean, I think he's walking into a good situation. That being said, am I saying he's good? No. I've never been a Petty fan. You know I'm not. I'm not going to change my team because he's an Eagle. You know I'm a realist, and I criticize more than anybody does. I didn't like the trade, and I told you right away, what the hell are we doing? Collier scared me, said it was a second-round pick. I was like, it was a what? I was like, there's no way Howie gave up a second-round pick for a backup quarterback. There's no way. Then I finally saw it. I was like, oh, my God, you just gave me a stroke. I'm cool with it, though. I mean, again, having a guy who started last year as a backup, a guy who we haven't seen what he truly is capable of. Maybe it was his fault. Maybe it was the Steelers' fault. We don't know. We never will know unless he plays. And I don't see him playing in Philadelphia.
I'm a fan of it, too. I'm glad he's gone.
I like having him there just because, again, it's hard to find a guy who was a starter willing to sit as a backup. And he didn't want to be a backup. Well, it makes no sense. He could have did what Justin Fields did and said, no, you're not. You're not trading me there. Because if he refuses to sign a deal with the Eagles would say, oh, never mind. I don't want him. Because usually you talk to the team. The team says, we're going to send you Kenny Pickett. The Eagles then reach out and talk to Kenny Pickett and say, hey, man, what are your expectations? Whatever. It's like a regular job. If he goes, I'm not going to play for you guys, I refuse to suit up, they're not going to make that trade. So, again, I mean, there had to have been
he was an Eagles fan growing up, so it's a dream.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm just saying. I mean, if he didn't want to be a backup, he could have very easily chose to go to some other bum squad and start. Is what they could have did. But yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. I don't want to be on the show too much long. It's already been an hour and a half. I appreciate you, Robbie. I know you've been with us the whole way, man.
Yeah.
No, it's great, man. You know what, though? For me, I don't care how long we do it. Like we tell you guys all the time, we don't do this for money. We're not doing this for views per se. I mean, if you guys tag along with us, awesome. We want to make this a big deal show at some point. But for now, this is just two guys talking trash and inviting you guys to do it with us. You know, make some posts on the page. Give us some of your takes. I'd love to argue with you guys in the comments, and we'll bring up some of the topics on the show. Real fast, though, we do have a new sponsor. Do you want to tell them really quickly about who that sponsor is?
Yes. So we'll have more details this Thursday. It's going to be Builder Bros Construction. They're an Ohio-based construction company that deals solely on claims, house claims, weather damage claims. They are running a special right now until July. It's called the Christmas in July special, where they are going to give somebody a completely free roof for your house. Now, I got confirmation. If you live in Pennsylvania, you are included. It's not just the state of Ohio. You can
I was
live
going
in
to say that
Pennsylvania as well.
And that's what's awesome about it is he will be a sponsor of the show. And the moment we told him, hey, man, a lot of our fan base is inside of the Pennsylvania area, the first thing he told Freight Trains, I believe it's your brother, correct? The owner of the
My brother-in-law, yes.
Yeah, his brother-in-law. The first thing his brother said was, oh, I'm aware of that. I'm going to make sure we get licensed in PA to make the deal happen. So he's doing this for, like, literally for this show, for you guys. And listen, you name me another podcast that might be able to land you a 25, 30, however big your house is, a brand new roof for nothing. Not to mention anything that we make from sponsorships, we are putting right back into the show for giveaways. You know, again, this kind of stuff allows us to do more giveaways. That's why the more of you guys that watch, the more you guys interact, the more sponsors we can show them and say, hey, look at our followers. We can start offering you guys some pretty awesome stuff based on that. So again, support the show, comment, like, subscribe, tell your friends and family. We can offer you free roofs. We can offer you gift cards, jerseys, you name it. And also, guys, don't forget about our other sponsor as well, AJB Sports Shop. He is actually ordering brand new stock as well. He's trying to get some of the newest jerseys out there, as well as get some other merchandise. And for Steelers fans, by the way, he did find, I think he has some Ben Roethlisberger Steelers stuff, actually, believe it or not. That's like original still from back in the day. He has a lot of old stuff. So, yeah, feel free to reach out to AJB Sports Shop. And again, even if you have any questions, you can come to me instead. Let me know what you're looking for. I can talk to him and see about getting something in. But aside from that, I think we're pretty much good. I mean, Freight, anything you want to say before we go? Are you good?
I don't think so. It's been a wild week. I can't wait for the weeks leading up to the draft. You know, I think the actual trade market and free agency is going to slow down here. Everybody's kind of getting into draft mode. So,
unless you're the Eagles signing Paris Campbell for some reason. Can't know what it is. But.
Yeah, he ain't bad. He's an Iowa State boy. I don't mind him.
Hey, he had a pretty big year 2 years ago, so we'll see if he can do the same thing. But yeah, man, I mean, obviously, car trouble sucks. We're going to try to make this not a regular thing.
Right,
But we will be aiming back for our Thursday at 8 p.m. If at some point we change the time and date, it'll be well in advance, episodes in advance, so you guys are ready.
And also we have a special guest next week. We almost
that's right. We have a Buccaneers fan coming on.
Yes, we're going to have a Buccaneers fan on next week.
We're going to hear some takes about some of the moves they made. Obviously, bringing back an old man and Levante David at linebacker. They brought back Mike Evans, which everybody was concerned would not happen. And the big news was the big contract that Baker Mayfield got paid out. And those will all be things that we hit on in next week's episode, and of course more. And we're getting close to draft time. If anybody's interested in joining the show, feel free to let us know in the comments. Shoot us a message, whatever it may be. The more, the merrier.
Absolutely.
That being said, we hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Go party it up. Hopefully you got drunk while watching the show. I will be doing that once I hop off of the show. And we will see you guys next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Feel free to follow us on TikTok. I will be posting way more videos on there. So follow us on TikTok at NFL Elite Banner. There will be some videos posted probably every other day. But that being said, Freight Train,